Welcome to the Rise Together podcast weekly hot take series. Every week, we're going to bring you powerful stories and strategies from leaders who are making a real impact by building stronger, more resilient communities. Get ready to be inspired, motivated, and equipped with the tools to thrive in both your personal and professional life.
Hi, everybody. This is Beth Almaris with the Foundation for Family and Community Healing. At the Foundation, we really focus on helping individuals and organizations build strength and resilience through skill-based education and leadership development opportunities. We have a really interesting guest today. I'm excited for you all to meet Lindsay Morgia, who is the founder of the Data Coach. How are you doing today, Lindsay?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for calling in. So why don't you tell us about your company?
Sure. So at the Data Coach, my job is to really help nonprofits better organize, analyze, and use their data to achieve their missions.
Hmm.
Nonprofits tend to be very overwhelmed with the amount of data that they have. They're being asked to collect data by, excuse me, a lot of people
Fabulous.
outside of the organization that doesn't necessarily match up with their missions. And it can be overwhelming when you don't have the time or the resources to really delve into it on your own. So at the Data Coach, I'm kind of stepping in and filling in that position to say, let me help you kind of wrap your heads around what you have. How do we make this work for your programs, your goals, and your mission?
Great. And how did you end up doing this?
So I I started my data career in the nonprofit sector. I truly believe because I was 21 and the youngest person in the office, and they said, "You're young. You probably know how to use a spreadsheet. Can you analyze this data for us?" And I'm like, "Cool. I don't know how to use this spreadsheet, but I will figure that out for you." Um, so I've worn a lot of different hats. I've worked in fundraising and development spaces, handling donor databases. I eventually moved into public policy analysis, collecting and analyzing data to inform policy recommendations. And through that work, I was always working with a lot of partners. And I kept hearing the same things over and over again of like, wow, we really wish we had a data person, but there's no time, there's no money. Um, our no one is really interested, no one has that kind of background, we don't really know what to do about it, so we're not really doing anything.
Hmm.
So I really believe that having a good understanding of the information that you have and a clear vision for how you're going to use that information can do so much, not just for an organization's programs, but also internally, operationally, just how you're interacting with each other and the people you serve on a day to day. But I also recognize how hard that is to do when there's a million other things going on. So I wanted to create a resource for organizations basically to come and say like, we need help with this, let me take care of that for you, let me teach you, let me work with you in whatever way that you need to help get this off the ground for you.
Hmm. Do you also help with strategy for future data collection?
Yes. A lot of the times with clients I work with, we start wherever you are. So we start with the data that you have, help you prioritize what's the most important to focus on. And then if we find that things are missing, then we can strategize and figure out, okay, what are some ways that we can get you the information that you're looking for without adding too much burden on staff who probably are already wearing three other hats in their day-to-day roles.
Yeah, it's really true. What are some of the ways some of your clients are using data?
So lots of different ways. Um, One is for sort of your typical evaluation of programs.
Hmm.
Um, is what we're doing working? How do we know that it's working? How are we defining success? A lot of the times I do notice that The question of how we're defining success comes after we've
Oh,
collected
interesting.
collected
Instead
the
of planning
data
for it.
and the feedback and such. And now we're like, well, does this feedback really help us figure out what we've done? So sometimes there's a little bit of working backwards and rethinking how we're collecting kind of feedback information from others. I've also done a lot of work with sort of learning, training, and development staff,
Okay.
because training can be a little bit of a tricky thing to evaluate. You can ask people for their immediate feedback, but trying to think about, did this training that we do have sort of longer term effects on how people are doing their work
Hmm.
or how people are communicating with clients, whatever your objectives were? That can be a harder thing to do. So I've definitely done a lot of work with folks, not just trying to sort of clean up and fix up their immediate feedback surveys. How can we get some better feedback for you that's more actionable? But also trying to think creatively about ways of like, well, how do we follow up? Do we follow up in a month? Do we follow up in 3 months? Um, how do you get folks to respond to those kinds of longer term follow ups when, again, folks are busy and maybe they've kind of forgotten a little bit what they've done? So lots of program work, lots of training and education work. And for a period, this has dropped off a bit, um, DEI evaluations.
Mm.
So a lot of organizations, sort of in response to 2020, George Floyd, put a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion sort of policies and practices in place. And there was a period of time where groups wanted to figure out, well, is this really working? Same kind of thing. We put a lot of things in place, but we didn't really think about what it meant for those things to be successful. So how do we kind of backtrack now and ask people, the ways in which our policies are not working for them? Um, that was very interesting work. I think that was really enlightening work. I wish I was hearing a little bit more about that, but I think not so much for nonprofits, but I think for other organizations in this political climate,
Yeah.
it's too much of a hot topic to touch, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking. So, what are some of the challenges that organizations face in terms of collecting data and besides just not having the bandwidth to do it?
I think knowing what data to collect is hard, particularly when this is not your professional background. So, most people, I think, are not getting into the nonprofit sector because they love spreadsheets and databases so much. You're there because you want to help, whether that's you're an attorney who is advocating for communities, you're a social worker that's working one-on-one with kids or families. You're here for a broader purpose. And stuff like data can very much feel like the annoying minutia that I just have to deal with. And when you're sort of being told by someone else, oh, you need to collect this and that, it's not particularly motivating, right? There's not a lot of buy-in to be like, yes, I must make this a priority, when it just kind of isn't. So I think that is one challenge, making data relevant for staff and showing the ways in which not all data, but the right data can really make a difference for who they're serving and also for themselves and making their jobs easier. Um, so, sort of background, level of interest in tackling all of this. Um, Not necessarily having a champion in the organization who is really for it, that can make putting in good practices a little bit challenging. Um, I think that there is a lot of education needed around data privacy practices,
Hmm.
protecting information. Again, this can feel so far out of the field. It can feel very technical or like that's just not my area. There are actually pretty simple things that organizations can be doing to protect people's personal information. It doesn't have to be as technical, but I think it just sounds like too much. It's like
Yeah.
this is so not on our radar, but nonprofits can be the victims of hacking just like any other type of business. So for us to build trust with the people that we serve, we do need to have these policies and practices in place to tell people you can trust us with your information. What are some other ones? I think just feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Overwhelmed. This is one thing on the list of 1,000 things. I know I keep saying that, but it really is true. I don't really know how to prioritize, you know, learning how to use my information well when I have so many other things that are clamoring for my attention and we have so few resources to pay attention to all of those things. So
Yeah.
that's why, my hope is that doing this kind of work will create some capacity for people to do it,
Hmm.
take away that feeling of overwhelm or just the dauntingness, I don't have time for this, even though I know it's
Right.
important, whatever it is. Like, let me hold that space for you and help you. And then eventually this will be something that you can learn how to integrate into your day-to-day work.
That's great. What about any trends you see happening in your field?
In terms of nonprofit organizations or being a consultant.
Well, I mean, I was just thinking of data. I like so much is talked about with AI. I don't know if that's impacting data or
Oh, it sure is.
collection.
It sure
So,
is.
yeah.
So I will be very honest. I am an AI skeptic. And the reason that I am an AI, well, lots of reasons I'm an AI skeptic, but the tools that have created AI systems are made by people. People have biases. And I'm not sure we're talking enough about some of the sort of inherent biases that are built into AI systems that we need to be careful about when we're
Hmm.
asking AI for help with things. Um, Another piece is the environmental impact of AI. It requires a lot of water usage to cool down all of the servers that are churning out all this information for us. So, if environmental justice is a part of our mission, our set of values as organizations, as nonprofits, that's something that we kind of have to reckon with. What is the impact going to be? Um, on the other side, I see how it is a helpful tool for people as a starting point for things like communications, for things like I have this spreadsheet, help me clean it. How do I fix these things that are going wrong with it? But again, I think we just really need to be careful about checking what AI is telling us and doing our due diligence. We can't take these things on faith. Um, Nonprofit organizations tend to be a little bit slower
Hmm.
to utilize newer technologies, and I think that's just, it's not necessarily a lack of interest, but it's a resource thing. It is one more thing to learn, it is possibly one more thing to purchase. But a lot of AI tools are being built into software systems that we are already using on a regular basis. I feel like I get 4 emails a day from, Google or Buffer or whatever other services that I'm using for my business being like, hey, it's a new AI tool. Like, I didn't even ask about this, I don't even know what this is. So as someone kind of in the universe, I'm overwhelmed by how quickly AI is evolving and being integrated into what we do. I think that nonprofits need to be very careful and conscious about what AI tools are using and when, whether that's for data or that's for anything else. Um, I haven't heard a lot of people, or I haven't had a lot of clients ask me about it because we're so in the data 101 phase when they come to me
Hmm.
that it's more about help me figure out what I'm looking at and less about like what new shiny thing can we use to manipulate this data set.
Yeah.
So not seeing too much. People aren't coming to me about AI things, maybe because I've talked about being a skeptic about it before and they're not asking
They're
me.
just not there yet. Yeah, I
and
think that's a
and
really
and
fair
yeah,
point.
yeah. um More sort of trends that I see are things like data fragmentation. So we have our data in lots of different places. This volunteer
Mm.
spreadsheet, this donor database, this email marketing system, and those systems can't really talk to each other. So it's a lot of extra work for staff. We don't always know which system has the most recent information. So, how do we consolidate this information into a more central space? That's one thing I hear about a lot. Um, our forms, our surveys aren't getting us information we can really use? How do we ask better questions? What are we doing wrong in terms of like how we're doing our outreach or communications around our surveys?
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that I hear a lot. And what's one more thing that I can think of? Yeah, some of the privacy and security things.
Sure.
Yeah, lots of surprise that that's something that nonprofits should be addressing, and then followed by lots of questions about how to do that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, really interesting conversation, Lindsay. Thanks so much for your thoughts and insights. If folks want to get connected and learn more, where can they find you?
So they can visit the website, which is www.the-data-coach.com. We are on Facebook and Instagram at the Data Coach 303. And you can also check out our YouTube channel where we do educational videos about data. And that is at youtube.com/the-data-coach.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks so much. And thanks to our listeners. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for joining us today on our Rise Together podcast weekly hot take series. We hope you've been inspired by today's stories and strategies for building stronger, more resilient communities. Remember, resilience isn't just about bouncing back. It's about growing through every challenge to become bigger and better. If you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with somebody who could benefit from these insights. Stay connected, stay resilient, and we'll see you next time.